Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Patty here. You're somebody that's been super innovative in the mortgage business. You created one of the largest independent mortgage lenders in the US, and you did this by really taking a bunch of different risks, but by being somebody who cared about the small people and just people that are not making maybe as much income and wanting to cater towards them. And so it's great that you did something like that, but you also were able to be very successful with it. And you've been named to, I think, Inc.'s fastest growing companies, I believe 8 times. You've gotten a bunch of different other accolades. So I'm just excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Great. So where did your passion initially for entrepreneurship begin? Like, I know your mother, I think, was pretty impactful to you. She had a cleaning business. Was that really where it started?
I think from a very young age, I grew up in a very Hispanic family, very Latinx culture. And I was the oldest grandchild of the whole family. My mom's one of 5 girls, and I was the firstborn. So I kind of always assumed that matriarch role. And being of Latina culture, I am very rooted in my family. So I can remember since I was very, very young wanting to do for them and take care of them. And growing up, my mom cleaned houses. She was a maid, and I would go to school and she would be cleaning the houses of kids that I went to school with. I went to school in La Mirada, California, which was then primarily a very Caucasian neighborhood. And my mom was always seen as different. And I always just looked at her as owning her own company. I never looked at her like a maid. I was like, oh, my mom, she's like the boss of her own company, and she could come home at 3 and make a snack. Like, I always saw her as an entrepreneur. So I think, that was the beginning of me seeing there isn't a task that I won't do still today to grow my business. So I think that was a gift that she gave me at a very young age, showing me that she could do a task that other people saw maybe as below somebody else, but I saw it as a key to freedom and flexibility.
Interesting. So why specifically mortgages? Because you saw what your mom was doing. I mean, you were interested in business leadership, but why the mortgage industry? There's a lot of places you could have went.
I fell into the mortgage industry. I think I've never met anybody who actually says, I purposely got into the mortgage business. We all fall into business. I actually will be celebrating my 43rd year in mortgage in a couple of
Wow.
weeks. I was 16 years old when I looked up a clerical position at TransUnion Credit, and I saw that it paid more than a traditional fast food restaurant. And it was a data input clerk, and I could type pretty fast at that time. So I applied for the job and I got it, and it was like 6 to 10 during the week and 6 a.m. till 9 in the morning on Saturdays. And it was inputting the derogatory mortgage trade lines on a mortgage factual report. So what that meant was nothing. I was typing the same thing over and over again. But there were these girls that would call in to see where I was in the transaction, like ordering the reports. And I started to become friends with some of them looking for the product. And I asked them how much money they made per hour and what they actually did and why they needed these reports. They're like, oh, well, we work at mortgage companies, or we're mortgage openers. So I just knew that they made more money than I did. So back then there wasn't the computer or anything. So the Sunday paper would have job ads, and I just looked for anything mortgage opener, mortgage related. And I got a very entry level job at a savings and loan back then, opening mortgage loans. So that was real. I stumbled into the mortgage career, and it wasn't a planned thing. And I just really have never left. So I better be good, right? 43 years, I better be good.
So you got interested in it, but what really made you love mortgages? Like, why spend, now you mentioned 43rd anniversary, why spend so much time on mortgages?
Yeah, because I had the gift of finding my passion at a very young age. I was 19 when a gentleman saw that I had a pretty good ability to sell. So he's like, here's a box of cards, go ask realtors for loans instead of sitting behind a desk. So that was my entry level into sales. But what was really clutch was that I realized that after I closed the loan and I was able to call the borrowers and say, your loan closed, and they'd cry, they'd be so excited. I mean, I was creating the American dream, and I found my passion. So I had this gift of finding my passion at a very young age. So everything else just comes because I get excited still today about what I do for a profession.
Hmm. So what would you say, like, you learned most at TransUnion Credit that really set you up for building your own business? Like, or did you just learn a lot when you just kind of started?
I actually fell into entrepreneurship. I suffered from imposter syndrome. I remember a few years ago, somebody said, did you have imposter syndrome? And I'm Googling it on my phone as she's interviewing me. And I did. I'm like, oh my gosh, this was me. So I always felt like I was lucky, not good. And it took somebody else seeing in me that I had the ability and the knowledge to be one of the better, more knowledgeable people in mortgage at the ripe age of 30. So I was very young married, very young divorced. And a realtor partner of mine, someone who gave me a lot of business, said, listen, I got this guy. I want to set you up with him. And I'm like, okay, well, I do a lot of business with her, so I better say yes. So anyhow, I went and met my now partner in life and the co-CEO and founder of New American Funding on a blind date. So, yeah, he was the entrepreneur. He's always been an entrepreneur. I was very much tied to a paycheck. I was a single mom and with 2 kids. And even when we started the early beginnings of our company, I was like, okay, you're going to pay me, right? Every 2 weeks. And he's like, Patty, no, this isn't how it works. So really, I'm not a self-taught entrepreneur. I had to be taught about risk and reward. I had to be taught by my now business partner slash husband about what it meant to really put our knowledge at risk and really bet on us. So I am not a self-made entrepreneur. I am a well-made entrepreneur. How about that? I'm a well-made entrepreneur. So yeah, no, the risk part scared me. I'm, again, very culturally centric, and saving money has been taught to me at a very young age. So the fact that I was going to put money that I had already earned back into something that I was going to work on was very scary to me.
Mm-hmm. So you met not your now husband. You guys launched this company together, New American Funding. At the time, like, what were some of these discussions like about the potential niche in the industry that you guys both thought was underserved and you wanted to be at? Like, what was the direction you were thinking of going in then, and how different is it from where you're today?
I think the gift was that I had done every role in mortgage, and Rick knew how to capitalize on that. So, yeah, I think our company is very, very well known, almost quite famous for tapping into underserved markets. I now rephrase them as undermarketed markets because not all Black and Brown people are underserved or poor. So, I love my culture. I love that I'm different. I love that I speak 2 languages. So think about doing business with people that are culturally in line with you. I thought, wow, this is like insane. There's so much business. And the fact that the Latina culture is really based on trust. And I was seen as a trusted company and a trusted leader. I was able to capitalize on that. So there really is a business case around doing it. But personally, for me, it's legacy building and it's what I love. And I always have loved being different. Even I loved having a mom that had an accent versus other kids that didn't from a very early age. So, yeah, we've been able to capitalize. We do by percentage more loans to the Latinx community than any other lender in America. And same with the Black community. I've really focused on nurturing that community and really bridging the gap to home ownership and what that looks like in a very positive light, like not to keep them like boxed in, but to really highlight the business case and the opportunity around serving these markets.
Hmm, that's good that you do that. So, you know, you mentioned like kind of your husband and you, like, it really worked out, initially in terms of the business side of things, but can you like dive into a bit more of like how you guys complement each other and like why this relationship like works so well to build up New American Funding?
Yeah, it's probably the number one question I get asked is how do you and your husband work together? Honestly, it's been a gift. I had training wheels. I had a first marriage. It didn't work out. Great thing is I make mistakes and I learn from them. Like I studied what was it that didn't work. And actually my ex-husband works at New American Funding as well and has for 12 years. So I really do work on the why. Why did this happen to me and to us and to our family? So I really focus on my relationship with Rick. And I think I found somebody that really had the same desire to make this work. So the great thing is he's really good at things I don't want to be good at, and I'm really good at things he doesn't want to be good at. And more than anything, I respect Rick like more than I love him. And I know some women are like, oh, why would you say that? Because I think love is very fluid, and I think respect is very solid. And my husband respects me as well equally. So in business, I think the fact that we've been together almost 30 years and continually have something always to talk about, something to strategize about. What's our life look like? What's our legacy look like? And we're both on that same journey and that same path is actually a benefit to us. I mean, I have a trusted partner, and that's the best thing you can find in business.
Mhm. So when you guys set out on building this company together, like how did you get it started? Like how did you get it started from a financial perspective? Like what was required there? How did you get your first customers when this was a new business that didn't really have maybe the kind of name yet in the space? Like what did you do to get it off the ground, get your first customers?
Yeah, well, I'm really proud to say that out of the top 20 mortgage lenders in the country, we're one of maybe two that are still owned privately. So the rest of them have either taken on capital and or have gone public. And I hold a very, very high regard for people that have really not taken the chips off the table and given them to others, right? I built this company on our backs for so many years now. I'm 59 years old. This isn't really a time to be giving my company away. So we're self-funded and always have been. We're strategically aligned to keep our platform sustainable. And how we started was just one thing at a time. We tried to realize what others were doing and we emulated. So that's why I'm really big on mentorship and looking at others, because I don't think you need to reinvent to do something really, really great in your own style. So I just looked at the best companies in the country, right? I still only look at Rocket like as a competitor. Everybody else is noise, but I only look at number one, right? UWM and Rocket. And I don't have the same platform as UWM, but I got to look at Rocket and figure out what they have done, why they have such large market share. And I have to aspire to compete with them. And so that's what we do on a daily basis. So building that platform is always looking up and not looking backwards, right? I don't look backwards or sideways at noise. I'm always looking to compete with the number one in the space. But yeah, like I said, I was born in this business. Every fiber of my body is this business. So we just started to just say, okay, how can we build generational wealth for our family? And that was from becoming a broker, whereby we didn't really fund the loans in our name. We just sold them off to like Wells Fargo and Bank of America. Well, in order to really capitalize on what we knew that we had to go build relationships with banks so we could fund our own loans in our own names and then really take the risk and service the own loans. And servicing has become a big deal. That's when you make your mortgage payment to the same person you actually did your loan with, because a lot of people don't like that when they fund their loan, then they get a notice that they have to make their payment somewhere else. Well, we don't do that. We own all that servicing as well. So it's just strategic, right? One building block at a time. And then the biggest thing is finding somebody better than you to run that block. So building talent, building community within our company has been a big strength of ours. And we continue to win awards on our culture, which was blasé back in the day when I used to talk about it, but now is super hip to work for a company that has a solid culture. So yeah, one building block at a time and become very, very good at it. And then we were able to scale.
Mm. So you wanted to really have control over the whole process and be able to offer a full set of services.
Yes, because Rick figured out really a long time ago that why in mortgage you apply for a loan and you do your purchase with New American and then you might do your refi with Rocket. There's just that disconnect where we like say you have your auto insurance. It's not like you're shopping for auto insurance every year, right? You just pay your auto insurance. So we were trying to figure out why consumers move. Why is it that they don't stick with the same mortgage partner for life? So we've been trying to profess that for 20 years and we call them customers for life. That's why we had to retain them in our servicing book. So we continually keep ourselves in front of them and we market to them all the time.
So in terms of like assessing risk of who to actually deal with when it comes to mortgages, like what goes into that process? Like I'm sure there's systems that you have, but how do you determine the clientele that you really want to work with that you're confident the deal will go well with?
Well, I think we're professed at doing the loans that people think they're not going to do well with, right? There's this like stigma and there's this notion that, certain communities don't pay their bills on time or, yeah, there's that community within all races and all cultures. So we've become very professed on how to underwrite to cultural nuances in different communities, whether it be Asian, whether it be Latinx, whether it be Asian. We all know different cultures come to America and grow up here and live learning how to save money differently, spend money differently. So we just are really professed at cultural underwriting. And so that's, I think, is a strength of our company.
Mhm. Yeah, I was gonna like ask more specific, like how you determine within these different cultures that somebody's going to be, good to work with.
Yeah, I mean, underwriting guidelines are underwriting guidelines. We look at, FICO scores, but we also look at alternative FICO scores and alternative ways of savings. Sometimes we do bank statement loans where, you have this maybe Uber driver or these, different gig employers paying differently. Like we can't put everybody in one box. So we really are professed at taking and analyzing risk on repayment methods, right? How is this culture repay? How does this person repay? I think
Hmm.
there's a lot of AI and analytics being built around these algorithms. So hopefully it'll get easier because the way we do it is very traditional. But yeah, I think because I come from an underwriting background, that's something we've been professed in for a really, really long time. We don't put one person in one box and then say, okay, you're credit worthy. We look at different boxes, and that's why we're able to do so many different loans in different communities.
Hmm. So it's a more open-minded approach.
Absolutely. Yeah. Open minded and not and super high on like I always have done loans with the ability to repay. When the ability to repay rule came out, I was like, duh. Like, why would I do a loan that where the borrower is not going to want to pay? There's nothing worse than getting into your dream home or creating a dream and checking it off and then having things go wrong. So we really look at putting people in homes so that they stay in their homes.
So one of the things you mentioned a little earlier, Patty, was about the culture you've created and how you were really early on with that. Like, why was culture so important to you before it became a big thing for every company to have? Like, what did you see that you needed to do in culture to make your company successful?
I think about 14 years ago, I stumbled on a company called Zappos. And Zappos was really, really well known for their culture within the company. And so I found out that they let other executives from other companies come and do 2-day boot camps with them to learn what was culture, how do you build a culture. And so Rick and I flew to now our hometown of Las Vegas and spent 2 days with the Zappos team. And so again, like I said, everything is out there, right? You can make it your own, but I learned from other great leaders. And so we took that training and that culture and we came back to New American Funding and we sat down and we actually named our culture NAF 360. And that's really where, everybody that shows up to NAF treats everybody with dignity and respect. Our consumers, our business partners, each other, our families, like we really teach everyone that comes into contact with us that NAV 360 culture. So it was really me learning from other business leaders, and that's why I think it's so important that we research, even as great leaders, that we're looking at even better leaders. I have no ego. I know there's always going to be somebody better out there than me. I just work to find them and then try to learn from them.
Hmm. How do you view like your work-life balance? Because you're working with your partner. You're trying to build something. You've been building it for many many years. Like, how have you balanced it out between like family time and really ensuring you can be a leader in the category? Like, what kind of goes into your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think as a woman leader, we live our lives a little differently than men. I mean, primarily most women still, make the choices around where their kids go to the doctor and they go to school. So we have additional responsibilities, which I'm super happy to have. I think that I never tried to find balance. I think that just who I was a working mother, business builder, and so my kids actually now are old and they look back at me and tell me that I always just saw you as fulfilled and happy. So I try to teach other women that we don't really have to make choices. There are things that we can do to support our business life. But I am 100% New American Funding, 100% Patty Arvielo, Rick's wife, and my kid's mother, and now my kid's grandmother. So I think I just didn't look to divide the duties, right? I just became better at being who I was as a business executive and business leader. So there, I didn't wake up to have to choose. And I think that's where the frustration lies. We just have to find balance within support. We do
Hmm.
need support. All families, all moms and dads need support. So, yeah, I don't seek to find balance. I find my life so extraordinary. Like it's more than I ever dreamt of that I have what I can give back to my family. So to me, that brings me a lot of joy.
That's great. So just kind of going back to what we talked about a little bit before, about how like you kind of view there's one competitor in the space and that you're also really open-minded in terms of learning. how do you ensure that you're consistently aware of all the new developments in the industry and that you're ready to implement them and you're able to churn out new features and new things that you want to add in based on new developments? Like what kind of goes into being super innovative and on top of what's going on in the space?
I think that I talk about this a lot, that most people are adverse, like they don't really like change. I think Rick and I thrive on change. And I think because in change comes innovation, right? If you wake up every day to avoid your world changing, you might as well just give up in business, especially because the world is moving so rapidly. I always told Rick, it's not who's in the business, who's coming in the business.
Hmm.
So I always have to see what innovation's coming, especially from the young generation, right? I surround myself with young tech leaders. I'm an angel investor in like 15 different companies. I love being around their owners table, the cap table, listening to the young generation building companies today, because it looks very different than the way Rick and I built our company just 20 years ago. So I stay on top of innovation, especially around AI, the use of AI, the integration of AI. It's so new, but yet so pivotal around everything that we're doing, everything we're touching. So I think because we live in a world where we both like to innovate and change, and we're really exceptional visionaries. I see mortgage for what it is. Today, it's a very painful process for everybody. I don't care what anybody says. There's no press button here. You got a home loan. There isn't. They might market to you that there is, but there isn't. And so our whole vision is to create that world where getting a mortgage loan doesn't mean that you have to give us 10,000 documents about how you either saved your money or pay your debt. So really that is the vision of mortgage. I think all of us are looking at different data points and algorithms so that we can credit decision people based on past behaviors instead of having you give us and scan us all your paperwork. So yeah, just being a visionary is fun, right? It's still living, and it's what makes our life and very purposeful in business.
So your place, your company has been recognized by many different news outlets and other places as a great place to work at. One of which is Fortune, recognized as one of the best to work at. What do you think? You mentioned kind of the company culture and what goes into that, but what do you think are like the overarching things that you've done as somebody who's managing that have set up the culture, just the way everything operates to be recognized as one of the best to work at?
I'm very intentional. I'm very intentional to make my C-suite extremely, I say like diverse, but I don't really like DEI type language or policy and procedure type language around what all companies need to do to bring different perspectives to the table. So I've been very intentional in promoting people from within our company. Our president, I hired her 15 years ago as a mortgage loan underwriter. She's now the president of one of the largest mortgage companies in America. My COO was a processor at our company, is now a COO. I'm very intentional in my leadership. We are 58% female over male. We're 43% diverse. Our top performers, the top 2% salespeople in our company are women. I mean, I think a lot of it is just the natural of evolution that if you see yourself in something, you are drawn to it. I think women are drawn to our company. Top performing women are drawn to our company because I am a top performing mortgage woman. And so they resonate with me, and I'm able to offer them mentorship and a view of what this could be for them. And dually, we have male leadership as well. So this whole male female co-CEO thing, I tell other companies it really works. And we just happen to be married. But even if we weren't married, I think it is really a secret sauce to get women to rise within organizations so they can see themselves in a leadership position. So it's a natural evolution on top of very intentional. I look at our stats. I tap people on the shoulder that I see as great, and I tell them, did you know you're this good and you should be seen? And they're like, really, you think that? And I said, yes. Yeah. So I really try to pull people up and push people out in the mortgage industry. And I've been doing this for 20 years, and I have so many mentees and so many people in my life that my life is so fulfilled by me being intentional around having women rise and people rise in our industry.
That's awesome. It's good. It's a good way to view things too, that you can kind of have both. You can be a leader and you can also promote other people of all different types of races, etc. Um,
Yeah.
so just the last question that I have, what do you aspire to accomplish now? Both professionally and personally, like what are some things that you aspire to accomplish over the next 5 to 10 years that maybe you haven't been able to do yet?
Well, our goal is to be top 5 mortgage lender in the country, and we're well on our way. So that's our business goal. Really, for me personally, I just want to mentor other women. I want to pour into my Latin culture. I want to dive into female leadership, what that means as a mother and a wife and a grandmother. I am the first Latina to have a business school named after them in the United States of America. So I was gifted the business school last year. It's Vanguard University in Southern California. So we just hired our first dean of the business school. He actually starts June 1st. So I want to pour into these children and pour into these kids. I actually sit on the board of Harvard's Center of Public Leadership as well. And I really try to lead the Latinx students at Harvard. And the funny thing is, Ben, I didn't even go to college. So my whole thing is I use college as an instrument for me so that they can see that there is not a linear path, right? There's not just one path to success. I am a very unconventional success story. And really, I can teach a lot about, that mistakes are inevitable, but really how to overcome them and to move on and to rise. So, and how to find free mentorship, free leadership, free business mentors. I'm really good at that. So, legacy building. I'm 59. I'm working for the cherry on top of the sundae right now. And it's all about giving back now because I feel so fortunate to have been given this life and this career. So I just work on giving back.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm definitely excited to see how you're going to continue to give back, whether it's through this new school, the new business school, and through other ways that you educate people, as well as the mentorship in your company. I think it's great that you do that, and thanks for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me, Ben.